to your life.
There's nothing a retired governor can do, but a president, now he can do a thing or two.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
Hello, my retro friends. Thank you for finding my channel, Mike the Retro Realtor. I'm sure you figured out by watching that clip, we're going to be talking about the movie Reagan that's in theaters right now. So this is going to be a little bit of torture for me. I've never done a review on a movie that's actually in the theaters. I am making a very conscious effort to go to the theaters again. There just has not been anything I really wanted to see. The movie Reagan stars Dennis Quaid and Jon Voight, and it's a biopic, so no real action, but they did have a little bit of money behind it. It's a good-looking movie. Here's what I liked about it. The acting was excellent. Dennis Quaid did an excellent job being Ronald Reagan. Within 10 minutes of the movie, it was very easy to believe that Dennis Quaid was doing an excellent job playing Ronald Reagan. Jon Voight was the other actor that you would know in this movie. There's a couple character actors that you would recognize. What's really interesting about this movie, obviously again, it's a biopic, so you know how it's going to end. But what they did, and I found this very interesting, they did from a Russian perspective. Jon Voight plays a KGB officer, and he starts explaining the story of Ronald Reagan. They started keeping tabs on him when he was the vice president of the Screen Actors Guild back in the 1940s. And they did talk about his childhood, his upbringing. They talked about his parents. They do talk about when he lost in 1976 and then won in 1980. It's a good-looking movie. They did an excellent job with the timepieces. You could tell you're in the 1940s. You can tell you're in the 1980s. The opening clip features a couple lines from the song "Everybody Wants to Rule the World." "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" was kind of their big political song, and of course it became a huge hit. And it's now, I think it walks hand in hand with anything that's from the 80s. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. And I'm sure the guys from Tears for Fears were thinking of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan when they wrote the song. Another song that's featured in the movie is Genesis' Land of Confusion. If you watch the video, they have these little puppets of world leaders and celebrities. Once again, Reagan is front and center. He even gets a cameo at the end with Nancy. These are very 80s things, and as a Gen Xer, Ronald Reagan was right there. I mean, Reagan was the president. I was more involved with playing Atari and Nintendo, building Legos, watching G.I. Joe and Transformers. But as a kid, he was the president, and he was mentioned in pop culture all the time. You know, even if you're not a fan of the man, he was there from 1981 to 1989. He was the president, and that's pretty much the entire 80s. The movie runs through the end of his life and his final days on the ranch, and it does a very nice job with that. So those are the things I really like. It was well acted. It looked really good. The production value, it cost $25 million, which is a pittance today for a modern movie, but you didn't really need a whole lot of money for sets, and the character actors did an excellent job supporting Dennis Quaid. What I didn't care for, they definitely shown Ronald Reagan in the best possible light. You know, I'm okay with most of that. From a technical standpoint, there's some pacing issues that were kind of a little I mean, it dragged on at parts. Your mind started wandering from the movie at times. From a technical standpoint, I give it a B. Well written, well acted, looked good. The pacing, again, is the only drawback I would really pick on. You know, just a quick thought. I mean, this is not a political channel.
Politics, 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 politics. Yes.
But every once in a while, politics and pop culture and nostalgia kind of all intersect. And Reagan being such an icon of the 80s, if you're into nostalgia, I think this is noteworthy. You know, like I said, I'm not going to get into politics too much. I'm not getting into politics of the man. This is basically a quick movie review, a couple points of why I like it. So here's my opinion of it. I'm a Gen Xer, so that's how I'm going to look at this. I fondly remember trick-or-treating in Wauwatosa, a suburb of Milwaukee. And I remember that you're seeing Reagan signs everywhere. Now, we didn't discuss politics in my house too much. I have very fond memories of Ronald Reagan. There was actually kind of a very cool thing with Tip O'Neill, who was the Democrat Speaker of the House, and Reagan and him, when he won in 1980, they started out kind of as adversaries, but he's like, at 6 o'clock, we're just two Irish guys drinking beer, politics aside. Which I do applaud. I don't know if that ever happened, but I do applaud if that did, that he's trying to reach across the aisle. And they made Tip O'Neill, who would be his biggest adversary, they made it look like they had a professional, friendly relationship, which, yeah, hopefully that did happen. I grew up, I thought, in the coolest time ever. So I just remember Ronald Reagan being a very optimistic guy, kind of that sweet grandfatherly type to me. I mean, that's just how I remember him. This is a political movie, so if you like Ronald Reagan, you're going to love this movie. If you don't like Ronald Reagan, you're going to think it's trash. What's really interesting is if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 98 and the reviewer score is 19. So, you know, obviously the people who went to the movie, they wanted to see it. they gave it a high score. And the reviewers, they call it an SNL skit. They thought it was pure fantasy. I mean, the movie had a budget of $25 million. It probably will break even by the end of its theater run. I don't think advertising will be very high. And of course, the theaters get their cut. So it might break even by the time it leaves the theaters. It'll do okay on streaming. But once again, this is kind of what I was hinting before when I did my review of Dinner Rush. This is a low risk, low budget film, but it's interesting. And like I said, it's political, so obviously you lose nearly half your audience right away. This is what dragged me into the theater, so I would like to see more of this stuff. That's all for today. Thanks so much for coming to my channel. Keep it retro, my friends.